So personalization it has been a big topic over many years. And as you can hear today from Jorge's opening keynotes, personalization is also a main theme for Liferay DXP 7.2. And recently in a study done by McKinsey, businesses that deploys personalization strategy actually see a 5 to 15% lift of their revenues and also saving their marketing costs up to 30%. And it is true, when done correctly, personalization can actually enhance customers' life and increase engagement and loyalty of the customers. But a lot of times, very often, personalization is only talked about in the context of marketing. And it leaves an impression of companies that is just trying to collect your data and displaying the advertisement wherever they can when you're browsing on the internet and when you're on a social media, or send you email addressing you by your first names and your job title just so they can sell you some businesses so you can buy their products, right? But I think it's actually much more than that. Personalization is actually about building meaningful relationship with your customers, and even after you already acquired them as a customers. And personalization is a process that you identify what the customer actually needs and create a relevant, individualized interactions between the two parties. And the goal is to enhance the end user experience. And in a customer portal use case, personalization can actually be used to quickly help you onboard your new customers to successfully use your product, use the service that they just purchased from you. It can also be used in the self-service knowledge center or self-service customer support to give them relevant informations, to give them relevant support whenever they needed it. So by providing a good experiences catered to user needs, you will also be able to keep happy customers, and then therefore they turn into loyal customers. And let's not forget about intranet too. Personalization is also about building a relationship with your employees. So if you actually use Liferay DXP to build intranet, don't overlook personalization. This is actually something important that can actually increase adoptions of your intranet by providing dynamic informations to your employees based on their profile and based on how they're searching on your employees' portals. And so this could potentially increase your productivities, adoption to your intranets, and employee engagements. So it's not solely about marketing. So, but to truly understand what your customer needs and to actually build a perfect web experiences is definitely not easy. And you definitely won't get it right for the first times. And you need to have constant feedback. You need to constantly collect data to help you understand what works and what doesn't work for your customers. And with these data, you can actually decide how to improve your web experiences. And this is why our mission for Liferay Analytics Cloud is to help you create optimized customer experiences based on data-driven insight. And here's a diagram here to kind of summarize how Liferay's product help you achieve this goal. So normally you would have Liferay DXP to help you build your marketing websites, commerce websites, or customer portal or intranet. And you build, you manage, and you deliver your web content and web experiences using DXP. And then Analytics Cloud will then measure all of the user interactions, collecting data, to providing you with some insights to help you decide what strategy on how to optimize your experiences. And this is kind of like a cycle that continues. So as you keep improving your websites, you keep measuring to making sure that your experiences are optimized and actually solving your customer's need. Okay? So by doing this, we hope that you can just drive better adoptions, better conversions, or whatever use case you have, and ultimately drive retention for your businesses. So what are some of the big hurdles and difficulties for personalizations? And so first is data collections, right? What data can or should I collect? Where can I actually get these data? How about the quality of the data? Is this data good enough for me to actually help me to provide better experiences for my customers? Then we also have the issues of data securities and data privacies. So this raises the questions, did GDPR kill personalizations? And obviously, since I'm giving a talk here, I think, no, it did not, right? But one thing that we do know, that the business as a business here, there's actually now a lot more work and a lot more responsibility that we have to do because of GDPR. So, but first, we should understand one thing, that this is the age of consent. And people are beginning to demand the right to give consent to almost everything. But GDPR doesn't mean that you cannot have data about your customers. But in order to collect data, you must have consent first. And you must be transparent about what data you're collecting and also disclose what you're doing with the data. And to be honest, this is actually a good way, a better way to do business with your customers, to build relationship with them. The first step is actually building the trust with them. So we shouldn't be collecting data in secret behind their back, like maybe how we used to do it, but now we should actually be responsible about what we're doing and providing them with the better experiences while collecting these data. So now I'm going to try to kill two birds in one stone, and I'm going to show you some of the Liferay features in Analytics Cloud, and at the same time, so I'm going to explain how each feature actually handles data privacy and securities. So Analytics Cloud, first and foremost, we collect and we track performances and analytics on how people are interacting on your website. And this data is sent from the client's browser and using the analytics JavaScript that you enabled on your site. So the first problem we have is, what if a user does not want to be tracked, right? As a web developer, when you're building your website, you might be creating that pop-up that asks for consent and say, can I collect your data? And you also explain, you also disclose how you're using these data. But let's say the user say no. And what you can actually do is, you can set this window variable, AC client disable tracking. Once it sets it to true, our analytics client will no longer send any analytics data to AC. And at this point, basically, this web session did not exist. AC have no information about them. So let's say the user agrees and consent to let you collect data. Analyst data will start flowing into ACs, but at this point, we're collecting just browsing behavior for these users. And the destination of this event, it's defined by the token string that when you paste into your DXP instance to set up this connection between AC and DXP. It's very similar to most analytics product out there. And one thing I want to just specify is that whatever data we transfer is transferred through HTTPS. And one thing that is very important to know here is that at this point, we're only sending browsing behavior information. The visitor still remains to be anonymous. We're not sending any personal information at this point. So the only thing that we're tracking now to know that this is the same browsing session or same visitor is something similar to a device ID. And in our product, we call it the AC client user ID. And this variable allows us to track the same user even though they come back in multiple sessions, and we can merge all of the behavior from this browser browsing activities. And this allows you to still do personalization even though to anonymous users based on browsing behaviors. And this is especially useful if you have a public website that most users don't need to log in or identify themselves with their browsing on your website. And another feature that we have is that you can actually turn anonymous visitors into known individual by actually integrating data from DXP or other data sources such as Salesforce CRM and even databases that you own yourself. And this allows you to build more of a complete profile for your customer. So you can actually create personalization not only based on the behaviors, but now based on who they actually are. And so how does this actually work? First, you have to identify who this person is. And this happens when a visitor logs into your DXP website. And when they log in, Analytics sends an event along with the user ID and contact ID from DXP. And then we map this ID to, previously I mentioned the browser ID. And then now we know that this browser belongs to this particular user in DXP. And now the identity is established. So what happened next? DXP was now start sending data from the user and contact table to ACs. And you are allowed to configure which field from these tables to send to ACs. But essentially, once the profile data arrives at AC, this person is no longer anonymous. And you can see the little face shows up right there. And now we're merging the browsing events of this device with the profile data that we received from DXP. And one thing I want to just specify here is that this feature is completely optional. You can turn it on if you decided that you want to do personalization based on profile information that is coming from DXP. So what happens if you actually have other data relating to your customer outside of DXP, and you would like to send it into AC to build an even fuller profile of your customers, right? And so we're building a new service. It's called a data ingestion service that you can actually send any custom data to AC via the API endpoints. So once you send the data in, you can then map it, define it within AC's data schema, so AC can actually understand what this data is for and how to analyze it properly. And so this allows you to kind of control what data you want to send and when do you want to send them. And then you should only send data that you need to use to help you create better experience for your customers. And I think GDPR kind of requires that you should store only the data that you need, and you have to explain why you're storing that. So now this allows you to consolidate all of the customer data into one single place. So you might have CRM data from Salesforce that tells you that which opportunities, what product they bought, and you could have transactional data that's coming from your commerce systems, and you might have some preference and other more profile information that is coming from a first-party database that you own already about your customers. So just a little bit about the security of this data ingestion service too. And so we will also assign a token to each of your data source. So just to ensure that the data can only travel between your data source to your AC instances. And also the data is always transferred in HTTPS. Okay, so now you have a lot of data in Analytics Cloud, right? And some of them are actually personal informations. So we have a suite of features that actually can help you assist your business to achieve data compliance. So the first thing that we have here is data inventory, and which is coming soon. And this inventory allows you to have a quick way to see what data you actually have and what data you're collecting on all of your customers. You can manage how these data are mapped, again, using this interface. And most importantly, there's a log that you can actually see when the data comes in, when the data is changed, and so you can actually do audit about all the data that is coming into AC. And at the same time, you can also manage the permissions with all of these fields to different roles, different users, or whether you want these fields to be exported or not. Okay, so GDPR also requires that you need to be able to export all of the user data that you collect on the visitors whenever they ask for it. So we also created a self-service interface and API endpoint so that you can actually call. So when a customer come and request that they need data, they want to have data that you're collecting on them, you just have to use the interface or the API calls, and AC will actually produce a exporting file, and you can deliver that to your customers. And the other thing is anonymizations. They can ask to be forgotten, and also the same thing. You can either use the interface or the API calls, and then we can remove all of the personal information about a person too. Okay, so now we've gone through how we collect and how we actually manage the customer data. Now we can see how we can actually use these data to improve your digital experiences. So one of the most important things before you do personalization is actually defining your target audiences. And many times, a personalization strategy actually fails because your audience is poorly defined, it's too broad, it's too general, or it actually does not accurately represent the individual that you're interacting with. So with the advanced segmentation feature in AC, you can segment your audiences using all different combination of the criteria and from all the data that you have already collected on your customers. So you can build criteria based on profile properties, session properties, and with only in AC that you can also create criteria based on historical browsing activities. Since this is a lot of data, we only store it in the cloud inside AC, and you cannot do that in DXP. And most importantly, we also have insights that we calculated and derived from based on what people are visiting, what page they're consuming, and this is what we call the interest, topic of interest. So you can actually segment people based on their interest. So you can say, I want to have all of the people that are interested in Liferay Analytics, plus they have been to our website in the last 30 days, plus they're engineers, blah, blah, blah. And then you can create an actual accurate profile of your target audiences that you want to personalize to. Okay, now you have your target segment, and now you have to create a personalization in DXP. And this feature is available in DXP 7.2. So since AC is integrated with DXP, all of the segments that you created AC are automatically synced to DXP. So you can create multiple experiences for different audiences on a single page, and the URL will remain the same for all of these experiences. And you can do simple things like just changing the title, changing the image of a page as an experience, or you can even just replace an entire segment, an entire fragment, and then you can replace an entire widget to serve entire different experiences if you would like. So this is all being used. You're using Web Experience Manager to build this, and then we have the modern site building capability that you can customize the experience however you want. And it's also worth mentioning that all of this experience that you created is actually rendered from the server side. A lot of other product actually, it requires you to implement something else through JavaScript and inject those experiences through JavaScript. So this is rendered in server side, and so to me, it's a lot better. Okay, so I'm not going to demo these features here, but today at 2:35 in track B, same location, we're actually going to have a live demo on how to create personalized experiences with Liferay DXP 7.2. So make sure to check it out if you're interested. Okay, and sometimes you're not sure which personalization or which experiences that you created is actually best for your customers. And so why not experiment with them? And Liferay Analytics Cloud allows you to create A/B testing inside DXP. And this feature is available in DXP 7.2 SP1. So you need to have SP1 in order to have A/B testing. And so similar to personalization, you can also create multiple variants to an experience and to see which one performs better. And so once you created a test, Analytics Cloud will start collecting all of the experimental data, and it provides a report on this experiment. And one thing that is really cool is also because the fact that AC is directly integrated with DXP is that when you can actually publish a winning variance of the experiment just by a single click. You do not need to implement any code, and then this variance will automatically become a default experiences on your site. So again, tomorrow we'll have a live demo at 3:15 on how to leverage A/B testing to optimize digital experience. So make sure you also check it out. Okay, so there's actually a lot more things that you can do with all of the data we are collecting in Analytics Cloud. And talking about the features of Analytics Cloud, we wanted to be able to introduce more AI and machine learning capabilities. And so AC can actually become an intelligence engine for your DXP. And so we want to be able to quickly provide complex insights that normally will take a long time to discover. We want to provide capabilities such as various model of content recommendation, product recommendations, segment suggestions, and then we want to be able to provide you with journey analytics to actually see how users are using your website as a whole throughout the whole journey. And then we also want to have capability to do continuous experimentation. So we want to make sure that you spend less time digging through the data and spend more time to create an optimized experience or optimized strategy for your customer. Okay, so in closing, going back to the question on whether GDPR actually killed personalization or not, and the answer is obviously no. And it is very easy to look at GDPR as an impediment to personalization, but if you see it as a necessary step in building a trusting relationship with your customers, and by being transparent and by being responsible with the data that you're collecting, and help them to see the value that they can be having of having a better personalized experience. And research has already shown that customers are actually willing to give up their personal data in exchange for a better user experience. So I believe in the long run, it will actually improve the relationship with your customers, and this is actually a better way to do business with your customers. Thank you.